Morning, everyone. It's Joe Waxman, and I'm back with another video. This morning, I would like to read the chart of Bob Marley, the famous reggae singer of Bob Marley and the Wailers. When I was in high school, I listened to a lot of Bob Marley, stuff like that. Pretty cool stuff. Let's just get into it. Not even sure why I chose Bob Marley for today, but I did. Never mind the transits. Get rid of the transits. Okay, so Bob Marley, February 6, 1945, 2:30 a.m., St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica. Okay. So Bob Marley is an Aquarius sun with a wide conjunction. I guess you probably would, a lot of people probably wouldn't even call that a conjunction at all, but it's in the same sign with Mercury, but in the second house. So the second house deals with the voice. Okay, so obviously for a singer like Bob Marley, we'd want to see second house activation either with the ruler or the house itself. And here we see mainly the second house itself is, we've got a whole stellium here. But Aquarius suns are very rebellious, unique, forward-thinking, progressive, out of the box, inventive, scientific, thinking about society, thinking about group dynamics. Aquarians are very idealistic. They often live by their ideals. And sometimes they can hold their ideals quite stubbornly, even to their own detriment. You know, if you ever dealt with an Aquarius, they just have these funny ideas that who knows where they get them from. And they're just like, nope, I have to do things this way because of this ideology that I believe in, that I made up all on my own, that I got from some alien somewhere or something like that. Who knows? Like, it's just very strange sometimes, but gotta hand it to them. They do stand for their convictions. One thing I've noticed is that they can tend to put their ideologies above even their own welfare at times, which can make them sort of a martyr for their own cause, right? Not taking care of themselves because they believe in this thing so, vehemently that they have to do it. And if it means rejecting, their own well-being, so be it. Okay. So like that. And he also had Mercury in Aquarius. But generally Aquarians are great because they're weird, they're rebellious, they are smart, inventive, they do not follow the crowd, at least in the areas where they're awake. They might follow the crowd to some extent because they're just not aware of that part of themselves. They just haven't woken up to their full potential. But the full potential of Aquarius is complete independence, uniqueness, like that. Concern with society and as a whole, as the betterment of society over the individual, right? But not forsaking the individuality, the individual uniqueness and freedom of the individual. It's a very complex archetype because it takes the complete totality of the individual to have sovereignty over his or her own self, not being ruled in the highest in the highest evolution of the Aquarian archetype. But at the same time, it's also concerned with all of society. So it's a utopian society, really, is the highest ideal of Aquarius. And so that's what an evolved Aquarian will represent, the utopian society ideal. Text message. Okay, so that's his sun in the second house. So obvious there. Now we have a Scorpio moon in the 12th house, and that is deep. That is intense. That is potentially very psychic and deep emotions, like deep hidden emotions, deep cathartic, transformative, painful emotions, and a lot of, there's going to be a lot of pain and crisis internally with him, and it won't show up very much on the surface. Like you might even never know it. I certainly wouldn't have guessed this, but because the 12th house moon won't show outright, it'll show in private. It'll show when he's alone. Like he'll know, but it's hard for him to get that out to the world. There are these sextiles which are good. That helps him express that deeply, deeply powerful transformative moon that's not easy to deal with because it's opposite its sign of exaltation, so it's in debility, but no less, it doesn't make it any less prominent or powerful in a way if you can handle it. It's not an easy thing, but it does add to a lot of creativity because the 12th house aspect, right? 12th house is a creative house, and Scorpio has its own creativity. It's water, you know. Pisces is the most creative out of the water signs, but Scorpio and Cancer definitely have their share of creativity because you're dealing with that depth, that deep transformative, the power of water. Well, in Cancer, it's like it's cardinal water, so however you want to look at that, but there's the creativity, the feminine creativity, and then Scorpio, it's more about the transformative quality of the deep nature of Scorpio and Pluto. And that is creative because it's regenerative, right? Something positive always comes out of Scorpio, bubbling up from the depths in the end, inevitably. So there's a lot of creativity here with this moon. So already we can see like this is probably somebody who's very creative and very good, strong singing potential. Now we have Sag ascendant, and Sag ascendants are, they got that swag. They just got that relaxed, cool vibe going on. I just did, the reading of Robert Plant. He had the same thing. Sagittarius ascendant. They got it, man. For being on stage, for having presence, for being like cool, chill. Just like that vibe is really strong with Sagittarius, wild and free, like don't even try and contain me because you're not going to be able to. It's also obviously has all the Jupiterian qualities of high-mindedness, philosophy, religion, all that. And he was, his music was very spiritual, religious, Rastafari, Jah, One Love, all that. And Jupiter is right up there in the 10th house in Virgo. So it's like very prominent. It's angular, it's high. Jupiter does not do great in Virgo because it's opposite its rulership in Pisces. However, it is retrograde. And it is, it has the dignity of being angular, being in the 10th house. 10th house is an angular house. 10th house is one of the most prominent houses. So it's not completely weak. It's not completely strong. It's showing recognition. And the retrograde gives it uniqueness because a retrograde planet is an introspective planet. So even though it's in detriment, it's introspective. It's like, okay, look, I'm, reflecting upon myself, even though like some of this, like there's gonna be issues around Jupiterian things relating to him, around his philosophy, around, maybe he didn't have the highest philosophy. Maybe his philosophy was, I don't know. I'm not really here to judge him, but Jupiter in Virgo is there's going to be something that is not really of the highest quality, you could say. But it's retrograde, so that means there's some thought process going on. And we also know that he came to an untimely end. He died before he was 40. He was in his 30s. Whether there was foul play or not, there very well could have been. Very well could have been. He had his enemies. The CIA did not like him. But we'll look at that a little bit more after we go through some of the other stuff. Jupiter does get a really nice sextile from Moon, and Moon is Jupiter's friend. So this is really positive, and you see this a lot of time with great artists. Jupiter Moon combinations. That's very good, very positive. Jupiter also gets a trine from this highly exalted Mars. Now, this is very good as well. The exalted Mars is in Capricorn at 23 degrees. I think its highest exaltation's at 28 degrees. So this is a very good Mars, right? Second house is dealing with voice, but it's also dealing with money, and it's dealing with values, and it's dealing with self-worth and family and assets and knowledge. And what can we say about this? Mars is great for voice because Mars gives the voice so much power when it's well aspect, and here it's the highly exalted. So this is probably his strongest placement in the whole chart, because it not only is it an exalted Mars, it's conjunct the South Node. So this shows the South Node, again, as I've said before, some people say it's what you bring it from past life, but whether you want to go that route or not, because there's no way we can verify that, what it means is that, practically speaking, the skills that you were born with, the skills that you know innately from birth. We speculate it means from past life, whether that's true or not. Who cares, right? Who knows? Who cares? South Node to Mars means in the second house, exalted means powerful voice, right? Skilled voice, skilled from an early age. He did not need to train very hard, if at all, to develop this wonderfully powerful, expressive voice. And he's got Mercury here, and he's got Sun. Sun is ruling the ninth house, again, pulling that in that philosophy, that higher wisdom, that religion, right? Jah, Rastafari. Mercury, pulling in the 10th house, career, and the 7th house, house of others, the masses, bringing the masses to his voice, to his values, to his self-worth, right? This is very strong. Second house, voice, very prominent. Okay, we could argue that Sun is on the third house cusp, therefore more third house influence. And that's fine too, because third house also deals with expression. Second house is voice specifically, third house is general expression, right? Mercury, like speaking, writing, communicating, intellect, logic, things like that. Skills of the hands, right? So this whole thing, very prominent for Bob Marley, and it should be. Second house Lord is Saturn in the 7th in Cancer, with the second and third house Lord, and the co-ruler is Uranus. So second and third house fully in the 7th house. Okay, that's 6, but it's approaching the descendant, so it's still having a strong 7th house influence. And why that's significant is because Uranus is a planet, like Aries, like Mars, very inspiring, right? It's a bolt of lightning that explodes, right? And in that explosion, it can start fires, meaning that it can inspire people. It can wake people up. In fact, that's his purpose, Uranus, is to wake people up. And that's one of the things that he was very, very good at, is waking up the masses to, whatever his message might have been. It was varied, and I don't want to go into the details, but, political, social corruption, religion, philosophy, love. He was trying to raise consciousness, in other words, right? And I'm a believer in Bob Marley. I think he was a good man doing good things. He was not the most, the most high. He was not completely enlightened. He had his issues, and there could have been some, I don't know, like anyone. He was human. He wasn't done yet, but he was very inspirational, and he did help to awaken the masses. And that's one of the things that he was very known for and applauded for. And that's Uranus in the 7th house, because 7th house is masses. Gemini is speaking. That's Mercury ruled. So here we have that 7. Actually, these are, they're not aspecting each other, but these are in each other's houses, Mercury and Uranus. So there's that voice, others connection here. Saturn's going to have a different influence. Now it's deep in the 7th house, moving, starting to have an influence on the 8th house, but I'd still call it the 7th house. By quadrant, by whole sign, you'd have to call it the 8th house. But Saturn here is a difficult aspect because, well, it's slowing down his influence, and we can see that, like, okay, he has some success when he was young, like the ska, the early ska stuff, which is actually really musically really wonderful if you listen to it. But that limited his early reach because 7th house is especially for music, it's very strong. Like, you want to look at the 7th house, 10th house, 11th house, 3rd house, 2nd house, right? 1st house, because 7th house is where we reach out to others, especially when we want to be heard, right? 10th house is where we want to be seen, so that needs to be prominent for any sort of recognition. 7th house, when we're speaking or making music, we want that also to be strong because that's where we get heard. So it's limiting it, but it is controlling. Dispositing the 2nd and 3rd house. So this is bringing his voice out to the masses, but it grows better with time. So it is retrograde, like it is here, and this sort of gave him a unique quality, an ability to, again, reflect, to cause us to reflect as well. I think it does suit his music. Like, there's a quality of retrograde planets cause one to think a bit more about whatever it represents, planet, sign, house. And I think Bob Marley's music does inspire thought. He'll pose, certain questionable things. I mean, how he was critical of the white man, and rightfully so, I'm not going to say not, but it does cause one to think. It causes one to retrograde in oneself, and to see where this message is coming from, whether it's true, whether it's not true, or how much of it is true, whether it's what role, if you are a white person listening to his music, like, well, what did the white people do to him? And I'm not proposing any, answers, but I think that represents the retrograde quality here. He himself was thinking about it, and it causes us to think about it as well. Now, Saturn has some difficult squares here. This is a very difficult aspect for him. First of all, Venus is in the 4th house, 5th sign, but 4th house. Venus is ruling the 6th and the 11th in the 4th. So first of all, a love of homeland, a love of his people. People loved him, but there was some discord there as well, some tensions there as well. Okay. And we know there were tensions. We know that there could have been love-hate issues. There could have been some, he could have had some enemies, especially bringing in the 6th house quality. But still, a lot of love for the homeland. What that means is that people, like homeland, Jamaica, right? Black people. He loved them, they loved him, right? That's what it essentially homeland means in this regard. But there was some tension. Saturn square Venus shows a lot of difficulty in relationships, because we're bringing out the harshness of Saturn here towards Venus. Venus represents relationships, especially for a man. And this Venus is in Aries, opposite its rulership in Libra. So this is not a happy Venus. Home life was not that pleasant for him. There was a lot of difficulty and pain. The square to Saturn shows rejection, not rejection. Well, it could be rejection. Chiron shows rejection. I'm going to get to that, but it shows a lot of delays, restriction, harshness, hard work in relationships, not easy relationships. Opposite Chiron and Neptune shows a lot of rejection within relationships, a lot of wounds and hurts and pain and idealism, fantasy, you know, thinking a person's one way, then they're another, or attracting relationships with very, you know, not great people, not great women. Some like could be drugs and alcohol, and they'd be deeply wounded because of that, traumatized, things like that. So, and that's square to Saturn as well. It's a big T square. Chiron square Saturn. I have Chiron square Saturn. So authority, a lot of pain and issues, painful relations with authority figures, where people in power are just really kind of coming down on him and hammering him. And that's why I think, along with, you know, Scorpio moon, 12th house, Pluto, I didn't even get to this, Pluto and Leo in the 8th house, I think he had enemies. I think he was murdered. They can make a person get cancer. And it's largely why, because of this, he was waking people up. He was waking too many people up with Uranus in the 7th house in Gemini. I think Uranus does well in Gemini. I think because it's co-ruler of the 3rd house and that second powerful 2nd house, he could wake people up with his music, with his message, with his Jupiterian philosophical message, right? And so I think he was attacked by the powers that be, you know, CIA, the government, American government. He has Pluto in Leo in the 8th house. Leo here can represent the government, especially when it's a wide orb, but there is an oppositional thing between, you know, Mercury and the Sun, even though it's not very obvious. It's still opposite sign, and it's still right in between these two. Good for his voice and good for his music, because it brings a lot of power and depth. You know, Pluto aspecting the 2nd house and 2nd house planets, but not good. Also, bringing a lot of crisis. This is a very powerful Pluto in the 8th house that can bring a lot of pain, a lot of crisis, a lot of transformative qualities. And it's together with this Scorpio 12th house moon, Pluto 8th house, in opposite the Sun and Mercury. It's bringing in a lot of death qualities. I mean, moon is ruling the 8th house cusp, right? So I mean, that's a lot. When, you know, when Scorpio 8th house Pluto contacts stack up, there can be death. I mean, that's a very real possibility, early death. I have to be careful myself. I have a lot of Scorpio 8th house Pluto contacts. I have Pluto trines and sextiles. I don't have any difficult Pluto contacts, but I have Sun and Venus in the 8th house, and I have Scorpio ascendant North Node in Uranus. So I could suddenly die one day, suddenly, you know, because Uranus is right on the ascendant in Scorpio, sudden death. 8th house, you know, all that. So people with these strong Scorpio 8th house contacts, they have to be careful, really careful. And also Venus here with Neptune shows a love of indulgence in drugs and alcohol. I don't know if alcohol was much of an issue for him, but certainly he liked to smoke the weed, smoke the ganja, because Venus shows what we love. It's our indulgence. It's our joy and leisurely activities. Opposite Neptune, that's very, very indicative of somebody who would indulge and be deluded in relationships. Oh, I have Venus opposite Neptune. Yeah, I do. So sorry about all these texts. So yeah, he did not live to see his North Node in the 8th house in Cancer, but that would have been a doozy, because North Node in the 8th house is not great in Cancer, even less so. It's better here for him in the 2nd house and financial security, in the house of the voice next to his Mars. Yeah, this is granting him wealth and material assets and powerful voice. Um, but highly creative. Jupiter is ruling the fourth house cusp in the 10th house, so it's bringing up early success. Let's see, Mars is ruling the fifth house and the 12th house in the second house, so bringing, these are both houses of creativity, fifth house and 12th house, bringing all the creative arts into his voice, in Capricorn. So it's a very exalted Mars, very powerful, very creative. His voice was so expressive because of this exalted Mars conjunct South Node. It has these really nice aspects. It was more to Mercury to Venus. That's a very artistic combination, Mercury, trine or sextile Venus. Even though this Venus is not very, it's not the happiest. It does have a trine from Pluto, which is nice because a square from Pluto would have been too much. This is already a stressed out Venus. Yeah, I mean, I think we can clearly see a case of Bob Marley having this very strong influence, this super powerful voice. I think his uniqueness of his voice was his most prominent thing, but also his ability to convey these messages to the masses that were very inspiring and motivating and awakening for the people, waking people up to a sort of bigger agenda, social issues, Aquarian type stuff, right? Because these are trine. We don't see a trine aspect because it's too wide, but we get it here. And the Pluto is sextile Uranus as well. And so is the Neptune. This is, by the way, Neptune in the 10th house. So many artists have this because Neptune is the planet of arts, as well as spirituality, delusion, confusion, fantasy, deceit. Like I always say, we want to see this from artists and musicians. We do not want to see this from politicians and world leaders. Joe Biden, terrible aspect. It means he's lying to the public, right? Which he is. Joe Biden's a liar. That's all he knows how to do is lie. Unlike Donald Trump, who's an exaggerator. Know the difference, okay? All these nasty, there's so many wonderful astrologers out there whose politics is just like garbage, complete total garbage. They don't know anything about politics. They're all like, Barack Obama is wonderful and Michelle Obama should be the next president. And they're idiots. They're good astrologers, but they're just like stupid. They're brain dead. So I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Joe Biden straight up lies. Like that's all he can do. Anyway, before I get kicked off YouTube for saying that, just thought I'd throw that in there. Hopefully it doesn't get me in trouble. So yeah, he definitely did not have things easy, but mixed life. Died young, certainly had his difficulties, but also had tremendous success and power and influence over the masses as well. So that's Bob Marley. Yeah, it's got a really nice balanced shape here with this. I forget what kind of shape this one is called, but it's some sort of trine, and then we almost have a trine, grand trine here, but it's crossing over down here. So this is really nice, harmonious balance. All these trines here are quite strong as well. Jupiter trine Mars, exalted Mars. That's really nice. That's helping this trine. The Mars is actually helping Jupiter here a lot because it's much stronger, right? So yeah, Jupiter gets help from Moon and Mars, especially from Mars, because Moon's not super strong. Moon has its own struggles, but it still likes Moon. Jupiter and Moon help each other, and Mars is really helping Jupiter up here. So yeah, there's nothing really much going on with the declination. He has Pluto's out of balance. Okay, so that's a strong Pluto. There's no stationary planets. A lot of retrogrades. A lot of retrogrades. Yeah. So that Pluto, very strong. Gives them that depth, gives them some depth. Okay, that's pretty much it for Bob Marley. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you enjoy this content. Go to my website, macroastrology.com, to book a reading. That's it for now, guys. Thanks. See you soon. Bye.